it's official. Pharmacy giant Walgreens acquiring Rite Aid in a deal valued at nearly $9.5 billion, bringing together two of the nation's three biggest drugstore chains. Certainly a trend developing there. Let's bring in Jonathan Bush, Chairman, President, and CEO of Athenahealth. We always love to have you on, so thanks for being here, Jonathan.
It's a treat for me. This beat's working.
Yeah, so... Hey, this is work. I'm going to make you work for this.
It's exhausting in there with the bagels and the coffee. I mean, I'm just exhausted.
Oh, you're giving it all away. All right, so when you look at these deals happening in the healthcare sector, and in this case, these pharmacy store giants, why is this happening right now?
Well, every industry goes through sort of maturation, consolidation, sort of obsolescence, and hopefully what it does is the tree falls down, it starts to rot, and then little mushrooms grow up and there's a whole new forest. So what we're seeing is we saw, I think last time I was on your show, we were talking about there's maybe Cigna and somebody merging, right? Yeah. We've seen a lot of the hospital systems merging in the New York area. You watch these larger and larger hospital systems. And now we're seeing the pharmacies.
How much of this change is being driven by the Affordable Care Act?
Well, I don't know. I think the Affordable Care Act is one of the many forces that are sort of pushing what is otherwise a very slow-to-move sector. Healthcare is kind of an industry, but kind of a public good, kind of a religion, so it doesn't move and react as quickly. I mean, here I am trying to get all the doctors onto the Internet. You would think that would be a kind of a pretty much okay idea. I've been doing it for 15 years, and I'm barely getting to 10% of the doctors.
Isn't that interesting that you're in like kind of the slowest crawling environment, and you look like quite the
look like a rocket ship, right?
But that's really why you have, people have really come, put a big question mark on your multiple, your growth rates.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the quarter and why your stock is up 23% in a day?
Yeah.
Can you tell, in plain speak?
You have good days, you have bad days.
You just reported your results, by the way.
Sure.
Raised
it was our earnings.
What do you think was there where the Bears had to look at it and say, you know what, John Bush is right?
That was evidence of it's not a breakthrough. It doesn't go viral the way it does in other sectors. Growth has to happen in a more linear way.
Right.
And we grew a really big chunk of doctors on the network. 7,000 some doctors added to this network. We're over 70,000 providers now where your doctor actually can reach you online. There's no forms. There's no, clipboards. And they connect to the insurance company online. They connect to the hospital online, the laboratory. That's the way the rest of our life works.
Right.
And now, as Athenahealth is getting out there, we're letting doctors be doctors. We're letting them do it. It's starting to work.
Jonathan, do you think, though, that there is a glut of med tech companies, small, new med tech companies, and a bubble in med tech? I pointed the Theranos story that the Wall Street Journal broke, very secretive, and it turns out the technology they developed was not being used in the vast majority of the blood tests they were doing.
Right. So Theranos is an example of one of these. Is it a giant panaceic invention that changes everything?
Right.
Most med tech works in two ways. You have the enterprise software companies merging and dying, like the hospitals, the payers. They're getting more efficient. Getting into fewer bigger names. But then you've got venture capital-based backed digital health companies emerging. There are hundreds and thousands of these companies finally getting into the market that are changing the way care is delivered. Even Walgreens, number 3 used app on the App Store is the Walgreens
So you're
app.
jumping on that bandwagon, by the way, because you've got this new ad campaign, Let Doctors Be Doctors. What's that all about?
It's so freaking funny. Let Doctors Be Doctors. You got to watch it. Whichever camera.
Tooting your own horn here.
I didn't make it, but the team that did, keeling over. It's so funny because we all have this experience of the doctor, on the screen or not living, their life, not paying attention to the patient, and we're finally breaking through that crap. And it's great. And actually, that's one of the nice things. Now that the Obama stuff has faded out, we're actually focusing on the native market conditions.
But there has to be a glut in this digital technology space, though. There has to be a glut.
All right, so here's the Let Doctors Be Doctors video. Explain what I'm looking at.
It's like a bunch of residents learning how to operate. And he's like, this is what you're going to spend most of your career doing, get ready. And they're like, ugh. And it's red tape. It's just tons of red tape coming out of the patient instead of organs. And this is the lady who's like, the hospital cafeteria, nobody talks to each other. They talk through someone else, like doctors dictating.
Yeah.
So, each guy's telling the other guy to tell the lunch lady to tell him what to have for lunch. and then mixed in is like the X-ray of the patient.
It's funny, but it brings up a really important point, and one that I know there's a lot of concern about. With all the change in the medical field and all the change, there's a lack of incentive you're hearing about to even become a doctor in this country right now. Is there a fear that we're not going to get the best?
We saw the first survey, 59% of doctors don't recommend being a doctor. It's the first time ever that the majority of doctors don't recommend medicine. And the reason, you see this in other markets. In the UK, you have the majority of GPs not recommending it to their kids. There's too much. We meant well when we layered all this administrative kind of bureaucratic quality measures that don't quite measure quality, but we need to measure something on top of them. And now they're drowning in it. What I imagine is kind of letting it sink to the bottom of the pond, let us handle it in the background, and then they get their bandwidth back to treat patients.
That's happening, though, isn't it?
It is. It's starting. It just happens slower than you would expect.
Isn't that the point? Like, how fast do you think you can take share in the small hospital market? And is that something that people just need to have, a pace to, or at least an expectation of a pace to?
One of the things we've just started is actually in the hospital market. So we've been doctors all the way through this last year. Last year we started putting whole hospitals on Athenahealth, little ones, community access,
that's where
critical access. That's right. And then you start growing out up into the bigger ones. And that's starting to make it, now you've got this interesting network effect where patients, we've got 69, 70 million patients on one database. It's like 5 Kaiser Permanentes. You can see that network effect starting to tip. And I'm expecting that's going to make being on Athena not a cool new thing, but a thing you better do.
Yeah, critical, important.
Congrats on your quarter. Your stock is certainly reflecting a very healthy quarter, if I may. Look at that, $150 a share you're at this morning.
Only $150. It's a steal.
All right, Jonathan Bush, you always make this so easy to understand. You're so animated. It's great to have you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. All right. Big, and get back to work, by the way. No more bagels and coffee for you.
We got